Yes, we're still talking about FA Cup history, and of course, this next piece we're going to do will also feed into what's happened today at Wembley. But there's a bigger story, really, an interesting story anyway. To celebrate the 150th anniversary of the founding of the FA, the Royal Mail is issuing a stamp collection honouring 11 of the most heroic home international players the UK has ever produced.
One of the players featured in the Football Heroes stamp collection is football legend John Barnes, and he joins us now on the phone.
Hello, John.
Hiya, fellas. How you doing?
John.
They probably just drew me out of a hat.
Well, John,
I don't think so, John.
I don't know,
they
John.
have Sir Bobby Charlton and George Best and they've got some great John Charles. I think they chose 7 and they needed a few more, so they just pulled them out of a hat.
I don't think so, John.
I'll read the other 10, John. Jimmy Greaves, John Charles, Gordon Banks, George Best, Kevin Keegan, Dennis Law, Bobby Moore, Brian Robson, Dave Mackay and Bobby Charlton. So I think you're probably right. Yeah, you're just there making up the numbers, John.
Illustrious, John, eh?
Oh, no, you're not wrong, mate. I tell you, obviously seen me play.
Actually, given that stamps live forever in the nation's history and people collect them and keep them and they're kept in the royal, this is a huge honour, isn't it?
It is a huge honour, and of course, the good thing about it is that once upon a time you had to be dead before you went on a stamp. It's only recently that you could be living, so I'm pleased.
Well done, John.
I'm still around to focus it. I don't know how long I'm going to be around for, but it is a great honour, particularly with players like and in fact, interesting enough, I was named after John Charles. My father was in England in the 50s, loved John Charles, and I'm John Charles Brandman, so I'm named after John Charles, and of course he's not around to receive the honour with me. However, just to be named alongside players like that is a great honour, yeah.
And what's happened with the stamp, John? Did you have to go and get your portrait painted or something like that?
No, it was commissioned, and an artist drew a picture of all of us, and I think that with me, looking at it, it looks as if it was probably drawn from 1990 when I played for England, because it's the England top from 1990,
yes.
And I had a little bit of an afro, and I looked a bit younger than I am now. So I assume that's when it was drawn. It was drawn from.
What about you at your peak, John? When do you think your best years? You obviously had a long, illustrious career, but when do you think you thought, yeah, they were the best 2 or 3 years?
When he kept putting you on your backside.
He did that loads of times.
No. When I first went to Liverpool in '87, but I'd already played for Watford for 6 years. I'd already had 30 England caps, so I was established England international. And of course, the goal in Brazil and the '86 World Cup. That was as a Watford player. So while people assumed that my career took off at Liverpool, which it did, I was still for 6 years at Watford. We finished second. So, but I have to say, my first 2 years at Liverpool between '87, unfortunately, we weren't able to play in the Champions League because we were banned. But they were I would consider to be my best years.
John, we've seen what's happened at Wembley today. Now, I understand you have got FA Cup winners' medals as well.
I've got more losers' medals. I've got 5, so don't rub it in.
I know you do, John. But in actual fact, having played in that side that was beaten by Wimbledon, and of course people might stop talking about that game after what happened today, you'll know how the Manchester City players are feeling tonight.
Well, of course, not just, regardless of whether you are the underdog or whether you are the favourites. Losing at Wembley is terrible. What I've always said, though, losing the semi-final is worse, because the whole occasion of the FA Cup final, the whole week, from a player perspective, just to get to Wembley in the final, and Alvin will know this, is so special that the semi-final is the place to lose. Now, just to hopefully finally put this Wimbledon thing to bed. Wimbledon were 6th in the top division. We were 1st. It is an upset in terms of the stature, the size, and the history of the two clubs. But Wimbledon, finishing 6th in the Premier League as it was back then, were a good side. So while, yes, you can say it's a huge upset, I think today's upset is even bigger.
Yeah, I think also, John, I think with all due respect to Wimbledon, they deserved their victory because they set their stall out, but they tried to suffocate the game, didn't they? Wigan didn't do that today, John. They took the game to Man City.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. And, I'm so surprised because, to be honest with you, I thought Wigan were a good side and I thought they had a chance. But after losing to Swansea midweek, I think that would hit them hard because it looks as if now they're going to get relegated, and I thought that would affect them today.
Interesting.
From the first minute to the last minute, they completely, thoroughly deserve to win.
Oh, totally. And John, a quick word actually, because Wigan or whoever is going to be relegated could easily be replaced by your old club Watford, and I guess the most exciting team they've probably had since your time. He's dropped off there. That's a shame. But we're going to talk to him about, because of course the playoff games is tomorrow when Watford trying to overturn a 1-0 deficit against us. Let me just say that was John Barnes on talkSPORT, one of the football legends featured in the Royal Mail's Hero stamp collection to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the FA. If you want to start your collection, you can just go to royalmail.com/football heroes, and always great to talk to. I'm looking at those 11 players. He's not our place. What a great player John Barnes was.
I speak to Liverpool fans. I've got obviously some mates who are real big Liverpool fans, and they talk about John, in the same breath as the Dalglishers and the Souness's, the great players. I played against him when he was at Watford, and that was a good side, as John said. Trained with him, when we went to the World Cup for 6 weeks. Sometimes you see different things in a player when you see them train. He did things. I always say that at the back. Glenn Hoddle, John Barnes, Chris Waddle. They did things in training that you thought, wow.
And of course, I won't hear anything said against Glenn Hoddle. But you've mentioned those 3 players. But Barnes, he had all that skill, but he was also like a monster of an athlete as well, wasn't he? A big, strong boy,
aggressive player. He had everything. He had intelligence, pace, power, guile. And he could finish.
And I didn't know, two amazing things about that interview. I didn't know he was named after the great John Charles.
No, I didn't.
And secondly, I love that he's still absolutely bitter about Wimbledon and still trying to put a record straight a quarter of a century later.
Football First on talkSPORT with the Football Heroes stamp collection from Royal Mail, celebrating 11 real football heroes on the 150th anniversary of the FA. Go to royalmail.com/footballheroes to start your collection.